thank you all for being here. My name is Seth Hanford. I think I met most of you, you people in the back especially. And I want to welcome you to our Faculty Memorial Garden. Sorry about the quality of the sound. There's a little bit of breeze, so if we don't need this, we'll get rid of it. But I do want to thank you all for coming today to remember, as we remember our 5 former colleagues who passed since the last time we gathered here. And before we get to those individual remembrances, I did want to take a moment to remind everyone of how this really beautiful place came to be. In 2008, tradition and history were very much on our minds as we completed the Ryder Center around the corner here, the first new construction on campus in 40 years. The unexpected death that summer of our librarian, Letty Erickson, got us thinking about the idea of legacy and the number of remarkable teachers who had so generously shared their knowledge and talents with the Academy community over the years and had since passed away. Faculty members at the time thought it seemed fitting to honor those friends with a visible symbol on the campus of their influence both as educators and as colleagues, and an informal campaign was launched to raise funds for a memorial. Current and past faculty and staff contributed in memory of the 11 people whose memorial stones were installed in the garden in 2012 at our first gathering. Catherine Tresvant, Shirley Novak, Letty Erickson, Chris Campbell, Joanne Buck, Tom Crocht, Frank Lamacher, Lottie Schwartz, Richard Sollenberger, Julianne Nelson, and Dennis Willen. Those contributions were combined with others that had been given to the school in memory of some of the honorees at the time of their deaths. And the end result is this lovely garden sitting area. In 2016, we gathered here again, paid tribute to Joanne Benight, David Fulmer, Tom Gazzola, Debbie Cusick, and Jerry Zank. This shady spot is dedicated to the memory of colleagues, friends, and mentors, the people with whom they shared both their professional and often their personal lives will always remember them fondly. We assemble here today to mark the addition of 5 new memorial stones. Mary Baird, George Sanchez, Doug Sept, and I would like to tell you a little bit about each of these colleagues. So I'd like to ask Mary to come forward first.
Hello. I'm Mary Bayer, EA's Upper School Theater Director, and I'm here to pay tribute to Allan Osborne, who served as theater director here from 1966 to 1972. Mr. Osborne graduated from Brown University in 1960 and began his teaching career at Middlesex Academy in Concord, Massachusetts. While there, he met his wife, Deborah, when she was set up as a friend's double date, a story they both loved to tell. Together, they moved to Elgin, where Oz spent the next 7 years building the theater program and teaching English and drama here on campus. He served as the English department head, a freshman class sponsor, and the moderator of the Fine Arts Club. Alums and faculty from this era will remember his productions of The Mouse That Roared, See How They Run, Harvey, Under Milkwood, Arsenic and Old Lace, A Midsummer Night's Dream, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, Diary of a Scoundrel, A Company of Wayward Saints, and The Death and Life of Sneaky Fitch. Even though fully involved in teaching and directing, he still managed to complete his master's in theater from NIU while at EA. This time of tremendous professional growth coincided with personal milestones as well. He and Deborah, who sometimes helped with costume designs for his shows, welcomed their 2 daughters, Heather and Caitlin, while here in Elgin. Allan was an inspirational teacher and director known for his creativity, tenacity, and fondness for telling a story. His mentorship of the actors in his productions was remarkable, and that continued when he moved his young family to North Carolina, where he developed a highly successful theater program for a small rural high school there, and founded a community theater group called the Martin Community Players, which is still going strong. Oz retired to his native Pennsylvania in 2006 and passed away in October of 2021 after a long illness. Thank you.
I'm George Sanchez, our current upper school dean of students, and I will be telling you about Michel Barbezat, who was the dean of students here from 1966 to 1971. Mich was born in Switzerland, and after early schooling in South Africa, he moved to the United States where he graduated from Northern Baptist Seminary. He then returned to South Africa where he served as a minister of education at a local church, establishing youth clubs, organizing camps, and teaching at the seminary in Johannesburg. In the early 60s, he returned again to the States and in 1966 earned a master's degree in guidance and counseling from Bradley University. This set him up perfectly for the position that he accepted at Elgin Academy as Dean of Students. At that time, the dean was part counselor, part psychologist, and part-time parent for our boarding students. Responsible for guiding teenagers on a daily basis, I'm sure that his faith and familiarity with a few well-placed prayers now and again proved very helpful. Some things do not change. In addition to being the dean, he taught sociology and psychology. Mich was a serene and gentle presence for our upper schoolers. He was always direct, but with a kindness that seemed to radiate from him and a quiet sense of humor and warmth that made an impact on everyone he met. After leaving the academy and becoming a U.S. citizen in 1973, he found his niche at Elgin Community College as an instructor in the Human Services Department, where he developed and implemented courses preparing paraprofessionals in mental health community service. Mr. Barbezat had two sons, Dan and Michael. Mich and his wife, Mary Allan, returned to EA in the late 90s as parents. Their younger son, Michael, is an alumnus of the Elgin Academy class of 1999. Mich was truly committed to the Elgin community, supporting social service and mental health organizations throughout the city and all over the Midwest. He died at home in March of 2020 after a long battle with cancer.
Hi, I'm Doug Sepp, the assistant head of school here. I'm going to be talking about Paul Sitz, who taught at Elgin Academy from 1967 to 1973. You may have noticed that Paul was not listed on the invitation for this event, for even though he passed in 2020, we only became aware of his passing earlier this week from his wife Gareth, who also taught at Elgin Academy during the same time frame. She became aware of this garden and our event through her AAUW connection to Mrs. Barbezat. It is indeed a small world. Paul Sitz came to the Academy with a BA from Dartmouth in International Relations and a Master of Fine Arts from the University of Chicago. A true Renaissance man, he was equally at home in both the academic world and the creative realm. Paul taught both American history and art during his time here, eventually serving as the Social Studies Department Chair. He began his teaching career in Tanzania, working there from 1962 to 1965. In 1967, he married Gareth, and the two of them became part of the Elgin Academy community. Paul was here at the same time as Allan Osborne, and he served as music and art coordinator and set designer for some of Allan's productions. After leaving the Academy, Paul taught ceramics and sculpture at Judson College and art and sociology at Streamwood High School until his retirement in 2003. He also served as technical director of the theater there, designing sets and lighting schemes for productions. In addition to being a lifelong educator, Paul was also a working artist and a skilled musician. His artwork was in a variety of media, including sculpture and ceramics, and in the last years of his life, concentrating on photography. He was a member of the Elgin Master Chorale, and he played the organ and trombone for worship and special services in the Bethlehem Lutheran Church, where he was a member. Paul and Gareth have 3 children, Paul Jr., Kyra, and James. Paul's long battle with cancer came to an end in September 2020.
Les Baird was drama teacher and theater director and English teacher at the Academy from 1992 to 1998. Les took over what was already a thriving theater program and made it even stronger. He wanted more than anything to share his love of theatrical arts with students, to show them how to walk through that curtain into an alternate world. Les had a remarkable way of convincing kids to trust their instincts, to take the plunge and do something that they might never have thought they could. Personally, I can also assure you that this talent worked on his colleagues as well, so much so that during Les's 1995 production of A Midsummer Night's Dream set in 1930s Ireland, Susan Kennedy and a certain young history teacher who shall remain nameless but had a lot of hair suddenly found themselves playing the tin whistle and the violin as part of the onstage music ensemble. Alums and teachers from this era will remember so many of Mr. Baird's unique productions, among which were Dark of the Moon, Bells Are Ringing, Twelfth Night, Guys and Dolls, You Can't Take It With You, Man of La Mancha, and The Crucible. With set design and production from his friend Joe Stewart, musical direction from colleagues like Dennis Willen, Heather Hutchison, and Dory Pearson, Les was an essential part of a very strong fine arts department. One of the things that made him such a good teacher and special individual was Les's ability to create community around him, whether it was in his English class, theater rehearsal, or at dinner before a play downtown. He was the human center point around which people, both students and colleagues, tended to come together and have fun. His ability to connect with all kinds of people manifested itself in lifelong relationships with students and school friends that remained vibrant and vital even after distance separated them. Les was the very essence of what it means to build meaningful relationships. In 1998, Les left the Academy and returned to Massachusetts, where he took the helm of the theater department at St. Mark's Academy. He retired from there in 2015 after a 17-year tenure. After retiring, Les and his longtime partner Sue, with whom he had traveled the world, moved to Colorado. He spent his time playing tennis, cooking impromptu meals for visiting students, and embarked on a deep read of all Shakespeare had written. His unexpected death from a heart attack took Sue, Les's daughter Julia, and the rest of his family, as well as his legion of friends, by surprise. He passed away in June of 2021. Frank Hogan was headmaster at Elgin Academy from 1975 to 1985, arriving at a critical moment in the school's history. While he had experience in schools, he had previously never been a headmaster. Despite that relative inexperience, his decisive leadership was instrumental in raising academic standards, strengthening the sense of school community, and reinvigorating athletic and co-curricular programs. He just knew what to do. His success here is a testament to what happens when someone applies their deeply held values, trusts their instincts, and just buckles down and works hard. The students themselves summed it up best when they dedicated the 1978 yearbook to Mr. Hogan. They wrote, "To our headmaster, Mr. Frank Hogan, for all the time, effort, and enthusiasm he has devoted to the Academy. He has expressed great concern for the school as a whole and for the students as individuals. He has influenced and encouraged us to mature, to create, and to take pride and satisfaction in meeting our potential. He has planted in our school a fresh spirit that has grown into a positive atmosphere where success and achievement are the ultimate goals. For your guidance and friendship, thank you, Mr. Hogan." I can tell you that nothing is more gratifying than to have students express a sentiment like that so eloquently. John Peterman, the first teacher that Frank hired here at EA, called Frank the most fearless man I have ever known, and he goes on to comment on both his humility and compassion. I didn't know Frank well, but from the first time I met him, later in his career when he was the head at Latin School of Chicago, all three characteristics were on display. I will never forget that conversation we had in a gym in St. Louis. I can tell you that story later. Frank, as many of you know, was most at home in a basketball gym, even if it was away from his beloved Loyola Ramblers, discussing schools and the 7'6" student who played at that time for Latin School. I'm not making that up. I didn't know this then, but the way he spoke about that kid, the way he knew him as something beyond a basketball player who would grab national attention, the way he ached for this young man who so deeply struggled with being the center of attention in any room he walked into just because you couldn't not look at him, and had to have shoes made especially for him because of his size, all of that was so characteristic of who Frank was. Frank knew every student, not just their grades and test scores, but who they really were, what they really needed, what they really wanted, and what really made them special. This was likely an extension of his Jesuit education at St. Ignatius Loyola Academy and Loyola University, all places where students receive more than just an education. Frank, Nancy, and their 6 children, Frank, Thomas, Beth, Tom, David, and Eric, were an integral part of this community during Frank's decade-long tenure at EA. His accolades are impressive and too numerous to mention here, but all of those accomplishments certainly took a backseat to the love and devotion he had for his family. On June 27th of this year in California, where he had retired 5 years ago, Frank passed away peacefully surrounded by his family. He had gone on to 2 other headships at Ransom Everglades in Florida and the Latin School of Chicago, but it was here at Elgin Academy that he learned how to so successfully do the work that would become his life's calling. And for that reason, this school held a special place in his heart. And for that, he has a special place in our collective heart. By remembering each of these educators in this beautiful campus space, we hope to leave a lasting legacy that commemorates their contribution to Elgin Academy's academic community. Both previous times we've gathered in this spot, we read a poem in tribute to the friends we were remembering. It has become a part of our ritual, and Mr. Sanchez is going to read it again because we think it speaks volumes about the chosen profession of these 21 educators and about all good independent school people. The poem is entitled "To Be of Use," and the poet is Marge Percy.
To Be of Use by Marge Piercy. The people I love the best jump into work, head first, without dallying in the shallows, and swim off with sure strokes almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of their element, the black, sleek heads of seals bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves, an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who stand in the line and haul in their places, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn, are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real.
I can think of no work more real than the everyday work of teachers and the bonds of mutual respect and deep affection that form among those who engage in that work together is what we commemorate and celebrate today. We've chosen this year to have this event kick off our celebration of homecoming, and it feels fitting to do so. For reasons that are probably obvious, this year as a community, we are emphasizing the theme of connection. The pandemic has done its best to erode and even destroy connections in all aspects of our lives. and we intend to fight against that. We know from experience that connections are crucial to the very fabric of Elgin Academy and make our community what it is. We're reminded of that today. You can tell from the beautiful descriptions of these 5 people that our faculty, staff, and administrators have always been connectors. In fact, it is that very trait that has led them to have their greatest impact. As we enter a weekend in which we think about the various ways in which EA is special, it is an appropriate beginning to reflect on the elements that are most essential to the sort of education in which we believe. To do this, I have what might seem like an odd request. I'd like you to just imagine probably a moment in your past that only you know happened when someone told you something that changed your life, an interaction that set you on a path, intentionally or not, that was different from the one you were on. If you can recall a moment like that, and I'll bet you can, we all have them, you have come as close as you can to understanding the power of a teacher that we're talking about today. Teaching has always been some about learning stuff, but more and more that stuff is already in our pockets and way easier to access. So more than the stuff, teaching and working in schools is about those very moments we were all just recalling. There's a certain magic in knowing that the proverbial teachable moment is in fact in front of you. And of course, there is magic too in knowing what to say in that moment. The exact right thing that spurs the exact result that we were all just remembering. Elgin Academy is full of teachers who bring about those moments every day. Today we've described 5 remarkable people that could in many ways serve in short form to summarize the history of our school. All of them created those moments. They were people who dedicated their professional lives and big parts of their personal existences to ensuring that students had opportunities to learn, pursue passions, grow, and thrive. These remarkable individuals stand as an example, both for and of my colleagues who are on this campus every day. Having listened today to stories of teaching lives well lived, we are reminded of the powerful influence of teachers. As we approach our 184th birthday this winter, much has changed at Elgin Academy, and yet the essence remains exactly the same. The definition of this place lies in the quality of the connections that it engenders, the relationships that underpin learning. The ability to learn from difficulty, the subtle push to try something new, the quiet conversation when someone says just the right thing at just the right time to get just the right result. The adult in whom you can confide when things seem most dire are all hallmarks of Elgin Academy. All of the people we have saluted today are people who embrace those possibilities. Influencing young people is as much art as it is science, and those 5 educators knew how to do it. My colleagues today continue to do the same. Thank you so much for being here to reflect on the most fundamental thing we do and the people who do it so magically. In saluting our predecessors, we have not only remembered 5 great people, we have also celebrated both the art and the science of teaching. We have honored all the dedicated people who choose the teaching life, and we have celebrated a school we all love. We would encourage you to spend some time enjoying the beauty of this garden. You're also invited to come to the cafeteria in Sears Hall right through those 2 doors where we have a reception and the ability to do some reminiscing and visiting, and there's a lot of yearbooks out there that will spurn some great memories, and we would love for you to come and join us. And this is it makes her nervous when I do this because I'm closing the part she wrote for me, but I want to thank Susan Kennedy for putting this together, as with so much we do. And this is a moment that as often happens that I wasn't really expecting. So there are not a lot of days more beautiful than this, right? This is a gorgeous day. And we were reminiscing a little bit before about what this has looked like at different points in the Academy's history, and reminiscing about what used to be there, and all those kind of things. But in I don't know what, 16 hours, 18 hours, this place is going to be loud, with lots of kids running around and lots of adults trying to keep them from all those things they try to keep them from. And it won't be this quiet at all, but this will be here just like this, right? As a reminder of all that these people have done, and all that those adults who are trying to keep them from doing whatever they're trying to keep them from doing, do every day when they come here. It's a remarkable, in some ways it's a contrast, but all of you will remember this spot in different moments in your time here. And what I can tell you is that tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, it's going to look just like you remember. Right now, it looks nothing like you remember. Right? It's never this quiet. But boy, tomorrow morning, Elgin Academy will look like Elgin Academy. This right now is also what Elgin Academy looks like. We're so thankful that you could come here today to join us and to celebrate, the most fundamental thing that we do. So thank you so much for being here.